Hi students, good morning and a warm welcome to you. I am Nageswaran. I am very eager to welcome you all to the English e-learning program. In the previous session, we saw the prose of Unit 5 and now the supplementary reader of the same unit titled The Singing Lesson written by Katherine Mansfield is awaiting. Let us see the English explanation of this story in this session. Later on, we will discuss the Tamil story of this supplementary, especially in the following session. Now, we are moving to page number 164 to see the author of this story. Katherine Mansfield Murray, born in the year 1888 and died in the year 1923, was a New Zealand short story writer who wrote under the pen name Katherine Mansfield. So Katherine Mansfield Murray is her real name. Her pen name is Katherine Mansfield. She left New Zealand at the age of 19 and settled in the United Kingdom, where she gained the friendship of great writers such as D.H. Lawrence and Virginia Woolf. Bliss and the Garden Party were collections of short stories written by her. She wrote many poems and her collected letters were a great success. Right. Now, we are going to see the outline of this story now. The Singing Lesson by Katherine Mansfield. This story explained how a music teacher, Miss Meadows' attitude disrupted her teachings to her class students when she was in sharp despair. Miss Meadows was upset and her behavior was changed after receiving a letter which was written by her fiancé, Basil. He informed her that he was not interested to marry, and the idea of settling down filled him with regret, and if he would marry her, then their marriage would be a mistake. The impact of this letter was on her mind the whole day. She showed hatred for the science mistress. She ignored to pick up a flower chrysanthemum offered by Mary, who used to play accompaniments in the class. Miss Meadows chose a tragic song, a lament, for conducting the music class. Then a little girl named Monica came and informed her that the headmistress wanted to see in her room. When she went to the headmistress' room, Miss Wyatt gave her a telegram. It was from Basil. He asked her not to pay any attention to his earlier letter, and he explained that he must have been mad while writing the letter. After the explanation from her fiancé, she no longer appeared in the disturbed mentality and instead acted in a cheerful mood. She returned to the music hall and asked the girls to sing a happier song in lieu of the lament with the full expression. Right. Now we are moving to the complete story now. Now read the story, The Singing Lesson, in which the attitude of an aggrieved music teacher. Aggrieved means feeling that you have been treated unfairly. In which the attitude of an aggrieved music teacher undergoes a drastic change in keeping with her moods. Drastic means extreme or severe. Right. Now the story begins. Miss Meadows, the music teacher, trod towards the music hall through the cold corridor. She was filled with deep despair caused by her fiancé's letter. Despair means sad and worried. Fiancé means a man who is engaged to marry a woman. Whereas if you use double E at the end of this word, the pronunciation is same, fiancé. That means a woman who is engaged to marry a man. Right. Here, this music teacher, Miss Meadows, was filled with a deep despair that was caused by her fiancé's letter. It was like a wicked knife. Wicked means cunning. She was in cap and gown, carried a little baton. Baton means a thin stick used by a conductor of a music orchestra. Girls of all ages, cheerful, active, with joyful sensation, were coming to school on a fine morning of autumn season. They rushed, moved by hopping, that means jumping, moved irregularly to reach the hollow classrooms. They were calling out to one another. School bell rang. Someone called loudly as Muriel in a voice like a bird. There was a tremendous sound from the staircase. Someone had dropped her dumbbells. Dumbbells means a weight with two discs attached to a short bar. The science mistress interrupted Miss Meadows in the midway and wished her good morning in her sweet and slow way of talking. She asked her whether it was very cold and told it might be winter. Miss Meadows was already hugging the knife. That means she was filled with despair because of her fiancé's letter. She stared in hatred at the science mistress. She hated her especially for her sweetness, her beauty. She would not have been surprised if a bee was caught in the twisted yellow hair of the science mistress. Then Miss Meadows replied that the cloudness was quite sharp. With a sugary, that means insincere smile, the science mistress commented that Miss Meadows looked frozen. When her blue eyes opened wide, there was a mocking, that means derisive light came from the eyes. Miss Meadows gave her a quick expression of disgust and replied that it was not quite as bad as that. Then she walked down to the class. Grimace means expression of disgust on a person's face. The students of 4th, 5th and 6th forms, that means students under the age of 14 and 16, as per the old system of education in New Zealand, were assembled in the music hall. They were making noise by talking with each other. Miss Beasley, the favorite of Miss Meadows, stood on the platform near the piano. She would play accompaniments. Accompaniments means music played to support. While turning the music stool, she saw Miss Meadows was coming. She gave a loud warning to the girls to be silent. Miss Meadows walked down the center passage of the hall, her hands thrust in her sleeves. She held the baton under her arm. She mounted the steps and turned sharply. Then she quickly took the brass music stand and placed it in front of her. She gave two sharp signals with her baton to indicate for a silence. She told the girls to be silent. It seemed that the girls had won a sea of colored flannel blouses. Flannel means soft cloth. They were with swaying pink faces and hands. They had worn decorative butterfly style bows in their hair. The music books were scattered widely. She knew what the girls were thinking. Maddie, the music teacher, was in a wax, that is, fit of anger. She admitted that they could think whatever way they liked. Her eyelids trembled. She lifted her head. She imagined on the thoughts of those creatures when someone who stood there bleeding to death and pierced to the heart by such a letter. The letter was written by her fiancé named Basil. Basil felt very strongly that his marriage with Miss Meadows would be a mistake. It didn't mean that he didn't love her. He loved her as much as it was possible for him to love any woman. But in fact, he had come to a conclusion that he was not a marrying man. The idea of settling down filled him with nothing but regret. It was clearly seen that the word disgust, that means dislike, was scratched out lightly, and the word regret, that means sorry, was written over the top. Miss Meadows walked over to the piano. Mary Beasley was waiting for the moment. She bent forward. Her curls fell over her cheeks while she breathed. That means uttered quietly the words, "Good morning, Miss Meadows," to her. She moved towards her and handed over a beautiful yellow flower chrysanthemum. This little ritual, that means a formal act of giving a flower, had been carried over forever. This routine act became a part of the lesson as of opening the piano. Miss Meadows would usually accept that flower from Mary. Then she would tuck it into her belt and would thank and greet her that it was very nice and ask her to turn page 32. But on that day, to Mary's horror, she totally ignored the flower given by Mary and made no reply to her greeting. But instead of that, she told her to turn page 14 and mark the accents. It was a shocking moment for Mary. She felt embarrassed and the tears stood in her eyes. But Miss Meadows went back to the music stand. Her voice rang through the music hall. She told the girls to turn to page 14. They would begin with the music lesson, a lament. That means it was a sorrowful, tragic song. It was like an expression of grief over a death. Miss Meadows instructed the girls that they ought to know the song by that time and they should take the song all together and not in pairs. She further told that they should sing the song quite simply, beating time with their left hand without any expression. Then Miss Meadows raised the baton and tapped the music stands twice. Mary began the song on the opening chord. Immediately, all other girls' left hands beat the air. They started to sing in chimed, young, mournful voices. Chimed means rang. Fast, too fast fade the roses of pleasure. Soon autumn yield unto winter drear. Fleety, fleetly, music's gay measure passes away from the listening ear. It was the song which was sung by all the students, including the music teacher, Miss Meadows. Miss Meadows thought that there could not be more tragic than that lament. Every note was a sigh, a sob, a cry of horrible mournfulness. She lifted her arms in the wide groan and began conducting with both hands. Again, Basil's letter came into her memory. He felt more and more strongly that their marriage would be a mistake. This was the line which was imprinted in her fiancé's letter. She recalled this letter often. She beat, and the voices of the girls cried as fleetly. Again, the interference of her thoughts on Basil. What could have possessed him to write such a letter? What could have led up to it? It came out of nothing. His last letter had been all about a fumed oak bookcase he had purchased. Fumed oak is a kind of oak that has exposed to ammonia fumes to darken its color. He elaborated on a natty little stand. Natty means smart and fashionable. He elaborated on a natty little stand which had a carved owl on a bracket holding 3 hat brushes in its claws. She smiled and wondered about the need of 3 hat brushes. In the music class, the girls sang the next line from the listening ear. Miss Meadows asked the girls to repeat their singing. She told them to sing in parts in the second time and still without expression in a fast and too fast beat. She instructed that when a state of melancholy or depression of the lowest female voice was added, one could hardly help shivering. Contraltos, that means the lowest female voice. Right. Then came the next line of the song, fade the roses of pleasure. That means again Miss Meadows went back to her thoughts. On the previous occasion, when Basil had come to see her, he had worn a rose in his buttonhole. He had looked handsome in that bright blue suit with that dark red rose. First, he caressed his hair, that is, touched his hair gently, then his mustache. When he smiled, his teeth appeared like a flash of light. Miss Meadows remembered her last meeting with Basil. He told that the headmaster's wife regularly invited him for a dinner. He felt it was a nuisance and he never went to that place in any evening. When Miss Meadows asked him why he couldn't refuse her, he told that a man in his position would become unpopular if he had done so. By this time, the girls sang a line, music's gay measure, in a high-pitched voices. One could see the willow trees which were outside through the high, narrow windows of the classroom. The tree branches moved in the wind. They withered half their leaves. The extremely small leaves were swinging like fishes. Miss Meadows suddenly remembered a line from Basil's letter. He was not a marrying man. The voices of the girls became silent and the piano waited. Miss Meadows appreciated the girls' singing was quite good. But the younger girls began to feel frightened by the strange and stony tone. She continued her instructions that they should practice it with expression now. They could give maximum expression. They should think about the words and should use their imaginations. Then she sang the line, fast or too fast. She further gave instructions on how to sing in a strong musical tone, a lament. That is a sad song. Forte means a musical tone played loudly. In the second line, they should utter the word drear as if a cold wind were blowing through it. She voiced the word drear and it made Mary Beasley wriggled her spine. Crescendo means increase. In a similar way, she instructed how to sing the remaining lines. Then she asked them to continue. Miss Meadows gave 2 light taps with her baton and she lifted her arms again. She sang the line, fast or too fast. Now Basil's letter came to her mind. He had written that the idea of settling down filled him with nothing but disgust. Disgust, that means dislike. Then he scratched out the word disgust lightly and wrote the word regret, that is sorry, over the top. Their engagement was definitely broken off. When the people knew that she had got engaged, they had been surprised. At first, the science mistress could not believe that. She was so surprised that nobody could, because she was 30 years old. That is, Miss Meadows was 30 years old and Basil, her fiancé, was 25 years old. He was 5 years younger than her. It had been a miracle, simply a miracle. Then they walked home from church on that very dark night. On the way, he told her that he was very fond of her, somehow or other. He had taken hold of the end of her ostrich feather decorative scarf. Suddenly, she heard the girl's voice singing the line, pauses away from the listening ear. Miss Meadows told the girls to repeat the line with more expression. The girls started singing the line fast or too fast. The older girls were crimson, that is, red in their faces, and some of the younger ones began to cry. Big spots of raindrops blast against the windows. One could hear the willow trees whispering. Again, Basil's letter came to her mind. It didn't mean that he hadn't loved her. Miss Meadows thought of telling Basil that if he loved her, she would not mind how much it was. But he could love her as little as he would like. However, she knew that he didn't love her. He even didn't care enough to scratch out the word disgust completely, so that she could not read it in his letter. Now the girls were singing the line, soon autumn yields unto winter drear. She would like to leave the school forever. If the science mistress and the girls knew about Basil's letter, then she could never face them. Somewhere she would have to disappear. Her thoughts were disturbed by the girls. They were singing the line, pauses away. The voices began to die, to fade, to whisper, and at last to vanish. The classroom door opened suddenly, and a little girl in blue dress entered. She walked in the center passage of 2 rows. Aisle. That means a passage between rows of seats. Hanging her head, biting her lips, and twisting the silver bangle on her little wrist. She came up the steps and stood before Miss Meadows. It seemed that Miss Meadows would have known the girl Monica. She asked her what was that. Monica told her that Miss Wyatt, the headmistress, wanted to see her in her room. Miss Meadows turned to the girls and told them that she was going away and they should maintain their honor to talk quietly while she was away. But the girls were in a depressed mood and would not do anything. Most of them were blowing their noses. Miss Meadows walked down the corridors, which were silent and cold. Her steps were echoed by the corridors. The headmistress was sitting at her desk. She didn't look up for a moment. Her eyeglasses were frequently got entangled with her lace tie. As usual, she was disentangling her eyeglasses. She said very kindly to Miss Meadows to sit down. Then she picked up a pink envelope from the blotting pad. She told her that a telegram had come for her and that was the reason to call her to her room. Blotting pad, that means paper used to dry ink. Miss Meadows, surprised, and asked Miss Wyatt whether the telegram was for her. Then she decided that the telegram would have the information that Basil had committed suicide. Her hand threw out the telegram, but Miss Wyatt held it back a moment. She told more than kindly that she hoped the telegram would not have bad news. So Miss Meadows tore the envelope and opened. Basil had sent the telegram. He asked her not to pay any attention to his earlier letter. He would have been mad while writing that letter. He further informed that he had bought a hat stand as a gift on that day. After reading the telegram, she couldn't take her eyes from it. Miss Vyot said that she hoped there was nothing very serious. Miss Meadows' face turned red due to embarrassment, and she told Miss Vyot that there was nothing bad at all. She gave an apologetic smile. She continued that it was from her fiancé, saying that she could not complete. There was a pause. Miss Vyot understood her shyness. And there was another pause. Then Miss Vyot reminded her that she had 15 minutes more to continue her class. Miss Meadows accepted headmistress' statement and got up. Then she half ran. That means halfway between walking and running towards the door. Miss Vyot interrupted Miss Meadows and instructed her that she would not approve of her teachers to have telegrams in school hours. She would give exception only to the telegrams with very bad news, such as death or a very serious accident or something to that effect. Telegrams with good news could always be kept after school hours. Miss Meadows felt as if she had wings of hope, of love, of joy. She sped back to the music hall, walking over the center passage and steps, and reached the piano. She told Mary to turn up 32, that is, for a happier song, and picked up the yellow flower chrysanthemum. She held it to her lips and hid her smile. Then she turned to the girls and tapped with her baton and told twice to turn page 32. The girls started to sing the happier song in page 32. We come here today with flowers overladen, with baskets of fruit and ribbons to boot, to congratulate. It was the happiest song. Miss Meadows shouted at them to stop. She told them that it was horrible and dreadful, and she smiled at her girls and asked them what the matter was with them all. She continued and told them to think of what they were singing, and also they had to use their imaginations. She sang the lines. Then she broke off with the emotions. She requested them not to look so sorrowful, and the song ought to sound warm, joyful, and eager. She asked them to sing once more in a quick way, all together, to congratulate. The meaning of the word doleful is sorrowful. And that time, Miss Meadows' voice sounded over all the other voices, full, deep, glowing with expression. Dear students, thus the story ends with a happy note. And now we could understand how the changes in the music teacher's mood affected everyone in the music class. And finally, we can get a message that the only difference between a good day and a bad day is our attitude. Okay, students, with this we can wind up this session. Let's meet in the next session and we can see the Tamil translation of this story there. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.